in Gateshead. I probably should call it the Riverside Mud Bath, because the course here is heavier than it's been for many years. If it had been a football match or a horse race just up the road at Gosforth, I'm sure it would have been called off. But the runners are made of very stern stuff indeed. But what an incentive awaits them in this first ever McVities World Cross Country Trial. Because for the men, the first 7 past the post, and for the women, the first 4 home, gain an automatic place in the first ever British team to go to the World Cross Country Championships, and they take place in the warmth of New Zealand in a couple of months' time. But today, we welcome back a young woman who's twice run away from the rest of the world. Earlier on today, we sent our own Steve Ovett, rather reluctantly, I would have to say, out on the course for a first-hand report on the conditions.
Well, I suppose Jim's told you that it's muddy. What he hasn't told you is it's muddy all the way round. It's 1,500 metres and about 6 inches of mud. 1 or 2 little hills, here we go again through the mud. Nothing to worry about really though, but it's going to be pretty sticky for the boys to run through. And when you consider they've got to go around 7.5 miles of this, and then they've got a team to run in, here we go, in New Zealand, later in the year, on nice, flat, warm cross-country. It's a different ball game, this. And I must admit, I don't envy the boys running it this afternoon, but that's what they've got to do. You've got to watch out for the boys with the webbed feet. They're going to win, I think. See you later.
Steve Ovett there. I know his brother Nick does a spot of tobogganing, and that bit of experience could have helped him on this exceedingly slippery course here today. Anyway, our first action...
Welcome back to Gateshead for international athletics, the World Cross Country Trials. And now the big race of the day. 68 men warming up at the start for this 7.5 lap route of the Gateshead Bowl to decide who will be picked for the World Cross Country Championship team. David Lewis, number 42 there, the Lancashire athlete, certainly will be one of the favourites. The 1985 English cross country champion. It was a race he won in very, very heavy conditions at Milton Keynes. This mud will be no problem at all to David Lewis. And certainly Lewis and a group of about half a dozen will be favoured to make an early break in this field. It's a big field. It's obviously to the competitors' advantage, the leading athletes, to get away from the rest as quickly as possible. Right in the centre of the picture there, all in blue, is the man who's 8 times been Scottish cross-country champion, wearing number 55, Nat Muir. Eamon Martin, another former national cross-country champion, also in this lineup. Steve Binns, the little Bingley Harrier, another gritty competitor who will very much be involved, I'm sure, in the leading positions. So they're off. 9 laps, 7.5 miles. The first 7 men home will be selected for the first ever British team, incidentally. In previous years, we've always had England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland represented separately. But for the first time ever, we will have a British team in Auckland, and only 7 of these men can be sure of going. The selectors, when they meet later today, will pick a team of 9, and as well as the first 7 men home today, they can add 2 more names to that list. And it's worth pointing out now that Tim Hutchings, another of our finest ever cross-country runners, and also the Cornwall athlete John Richards, are not in this field today for good reasons. They're both injured, and both, we know, interested in selection, so obviously they would be favourites to fill the 2 remaining places. But for the rest, now Eamon Martin up there in the lead, in the yellow vest and blue shorts. For the rest, those first 7 places are what they're aiming at. Steve Ovett, this will be a very competitive race.
Yes, it's a much bigger field than a women's race, Alan, and I think that the boys in this race know that it's going to be a tough old course there, and they're going to take it fairly steady to start with, and no one's going to be going out there doing any heroics early on in the race. And as we talk from the girls, it's a sort of course which doesn't really allow much movement from runners coming through the field later in the race. So I think we'll perhaps see a very gentle start, followed by should I say, a harder middle part of the race, and then I think they'll try and hold on to those positions and carry it through to the end. But at the moment, as you see, a massive field. They're still bunched quite tightly together, and really no one at the moment, like Susan and Angela to be pushing the pace on to stretch them out.
And Martin in the lead. Steve Binns, number 6 in the blue and white hoops of Bingley Harriers, also in the first 3 there, although of course they're all very close at this stage. David Lewis is there too. Number 75 is Mike Williams from Shaftesbury Harriers in the black and white stripes. Ian McNeely, the Irishman, I can see there wearing number 50, also in the first half a dozen. There he is in the green vest. The first lap obviously will be an opportunity for them to test out the conditions for themselves. They've all been running around the course yesterday and a little light jog around it this morning. There have been a number of races on the course before this race actually began, so the conditions will be worse than what they experienced on their training run yesterday. And Eamon Martin, the leader, certainly isn't relishing these conditions. He's a man who prefers the firmer cross-country grounds. David Lewis, as I was saying before the race, will relish the mud. Stevie Binns as well is a tough guy, the Yorkshireman, who can conquer almost any conditions, so the mud won't be a problem for him. Martin leads then. Ian McNeely has moved through into second place. That's Barry Knight now in the red and yellow, number 38, the Torbay athlete, in third place. Been a lot of controversy leading up to this race. Not only the fact that the national country has lost their own identity and it's become a British team, but there's been criticism of the timing of this race, the selection of the venue, and the insistence by the authorities that anyone who wasn't interested in going to New Zealand didn't really have a place in this field. But the controversy's out of the way now, and the racing has begun. Number 44, Eamon Martin. Number 50, Ian McNeely. Number 73 is Paul Wheeler, all in red. 42 is Dave Lewis, all in blue, and in the hoops there's Steve Binns. Steve Ovett.
Well, Alan, as I say, it's really at the moment just a fairly steady pace. I wouldn't say that it's frightening out there in the middle of that group. They're not really pushing it that hard. They're just literally spreading across the field, trying to find a decent bit of ground to run on and waiting to see if anybody makes the pace and then to sort of try and follow it, I suppose. But no one really has taken the bull by the horns, as it were, and gone out there and pushed it hard. They're really just sort of running at a reasonable pace. Stevie Binns has just come onto the inside there. He trying to find, I think, a decent bit of ground, but I don't think there is any out there. And I think we'll see the race developing where the pack of about 10 or so runners are now sifting themselves out, the top 10 as it were, sifting themselves out to the head of the field, and they'll wait until they're almost all around one another before they decide what's going on. Andrew Bristow, I think they're number 7, just on the outside of that in the red and black vest, is a local boy from my part of the world, from Brighton and home. He's running exceptionally well at the moment, and I hope he makes the team. But as you see, there's a group of about 10 there. And the pack of at least another 30 or so is not far behind. Roger Hackney is just at the edge of our screen there, in the red and green of Aldershot 29. He's running very well at the moment, and I think we're going to see perhaps a fairly good race here, actually. And even though, as you mentioned earlier, some of the top runners are not here today.
Incidentally, while you were speaking there, Steve, I noticed that Nat Muir, the Scotsman, had to detach himself from the main pack, and he went off to the outside loop of the course. It looked as though he'd lost a shoe, and that's obviously going to be a problem in this heavy mud. It's very easy to become detached from your footwear, I would think.
Well, it's difficult to know, not only how to stay in touch with your footwear, but what actually to wear. I mean, what do you wear through that sort of mud? You can't wear Wellingtons, can you? Which is the obvious thing to use if you're going out walking. You've got to wear something which has got about a 3-inch spikes in it, and allow you to get down to some sort of some hard ground underneath it. Look at it; it's absolutely unbelievable out there. I don't think it's really easy to appreciate the sort of conditions that these boys are running in at the moment. That part there of the course actually is about the best part of them, where you come up the hill. There's a stretch of about 300 yards or more where you can get a bit of a grip and you can push on a bit. As we see there are some people actually making a move at the moment, and that's about the only place in the course that you can do that. The rest of the course is desperately hard just to keep your footing, and at that point, you're going to find that you can't make any headway on anybody at all in the race.
And that was Dion McNeely who pushed it there quite hard, really, the RAF man who won the Sefton Branca Trophy race recently. And on that fast pitch, as you saw, Steve, he really pushed it on. And there's McNeely there leading by about, what, near 10 metres now from Eamon Martin. And some of the big names, obviously looking to get in the first 7, like Steve Binns, Roger Hackney, they're back in about 10th place now. David Lewis also going quite well, about 7th. But certainly Dion McNeely, wearing number 50, going very well indeed in the lead. Quite a big gap now opening up between him and Eamon Martin, number 44, in 2nd place in the yellow there with the blue shorts. Then a group of 4 with David Lewis in the blue just on the inside of that, and about another 5 or 6 still well in touch. And remember, 9 people will represent Great Britain in the World Cross Country Championships, and the first 7 sure of selection.
Dion McNeely, who's 25, member of the RAF, twice Northern Irish cross-country champion, and was 6th in the big Brooks race in Mollusk recently. Had the satisfaction of beating David Moorcroft over 3,000 metres in the summer track season last year. But his track pedigree is really nothing compared to the others in this field. So the fact that he's leading this very exclusive group is to his credit. And there, number 55, all in blue, just gone through the picture, was Nat Muir. So obviously he's reintroduced himself to his footwear and is back in the race, but he lost a lot of ground. And I would think, Steve, that in mud like this, it must be even more difficult to reduce a gap if you get out of touch with the leaders, because you have to work that much harder to get back.
That's right. I mean, you can't use any of the slopes really to sort of get a bit of a rhythm up and use them as an accelerator to push along the flat stretches at the bottom of them, because when you're going down most of the slopes at the moment, you're just trying to hold your footing, so you can't even use that to accelerate. But as you saw, McNeely used that stretch of about 300 yards to gain 15 on this rest of the field, and they're finding it very, very difficult to catch that up on any part where there's mud, because they're really struggling in this type of conditions. I think the question has always got to be asked is whether we really should use this type of course to select our team, because even though it's about the only sort of conditions that we can run in, when they get across to New Zealand, everybody knows it's about 75 degrees there at the moment. It could be hotter by the time they get there. The courses that they run on are going to be virtually like flat golf courses and very, very fast. And the men that we send across might only be good at running on the mud, but that's a problem that we're faced with all the time in selection, Alan.
So 3 kilometres completed. Dion McNeely leads, Eamon Martin 2nd, Roger Hackney has moved through to 3rd now, and then a big gap back to David Lewis in 4th place. We're watching with great interest down there amongst the muck and bullets, so to speak, is one of the great athletic sons of the Northeast, Brendan Foster. He's talking with Jim.
Now then, Brendan, we've heard that Nat Muir's lost a shoe. I reckon there might be 1 or 2 bodies under the mud as well. Have you ever seen this course heavier?
This is terrible conditions, actually. It's muddy all the way. I was just talking to Steve Binns before the race. He said he'd looked around and he didn't think there was more than a couple of 100 metres where he could actually run properly. So these are the conditions that very, very few distance runners like. But we've seen the Irishman here leading. I mean, that's never been seen in Gateshead before. We've never had an Irishman winning a race here before. It looks like he might do it, but good luck to him. But I mean, I would be a little bit worried about using this race today to pick a team to run a race in New Zealand in a few months' time.
Well, that's right, because Steve Ovett has made the point, I think, that it seems a little bit strange to pick a team to run on hard, firm ground in the sunshine, pick them in conditions like this.
Well, that's right. I mean, our best 10,000 metre runner, Steve Binns, is in this race, and he's about 8th place at the moment. And I guarantee you that if the course was firm, he'd be up in the first 2 or 3. In the same way Dave Lewis and some of our really good distance runners who we would rely on in New Zealand look like they might be struggling today. But I mean, this is what cross country is all about. And at the end of the day, this is a selection race, and they're going to pick the team from this race. And I mean, nobody objects to that kind of policy. It's just unfortunate that the circumstances are as they are. But I mean, this is for the real men.
Right.
I used to hate these kind of conditions.
Gates hasn't exactly put on its sunny side for us, has it?
No, occasionally 1 or 2 days a year we get a little bit of rain. It happened this week, you know.
Nice talking to you, Brent. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Jim.
Back amongst the runners, Chris Robertson there just overtaking David Lewis, and indeed Steve Binns is also overtaking Lewis, and Lewis has slowed and stopped, and in fact David Lewis obviously has a problem. David Lewis, a former national champion and one of the big pre-race favourites, that's Robertson in the picture there, but Lewis has stepped off the course and is out of the race, and presumably out of contention as McNeely continues to lead. Lewis out of contention for a place in the World Championships. He had a problem, I don't know what it was, but clearly Lewis is not going to get back into this race. So Dean McNeely out in front, able to relax, and he's put a very big gap between himself and his chasing rivals now, although having said that, the gap got a little smaller on that loop of the course. And David Lewis, who was one of the pre-race favourites, in trouble, out of the race, and will be a very disappointed man. David Lewis was saying that he hadn't totally made up his mind whether if he gained selection for New Zealand he really wanted to go. It certainly didn't figure in his original plans for the season. Well, now I guess his mind has been made up. He could still be selected, of course, with 2 names to be added to the first 7 today, but I would think the fact that something went wrong for him will influence his decision in any case. It would appear that David Lewis won't be part of our World Championship team. Dean McNeely stretches up the hill then, with a comfortable lead still, over Eamon Martin in 2nd place, and Roger Hackney 3rd.
It's interesting, Alan, this is the first time, of course, we've had a cross-country trial involving all the 4 home nations in the British Isles to select a British team, and of course, here we have a Northern Irishman leading from an Englishman, leading from a Welshman.
Yes, we need a Scot, and there is one a little further down, Chris Rogerson. He's in 5th place at the moment.
Well, I think
certainly that gap is getting shorter now. Ian McNeely tiring a little. I think they're all tired, but there's a definite sight for Eamon Martin of the possibility of overtaking the leader. McNeely's been out and had it all his own way for 2 or 3 loops now. But those legs are feeling the pain. Steve, it is strange how we often get athletes who don't particularly start on the track doing well over the cross country. How would you describe the differences between those 2 types of running?
Well, I think we're talking about marginal technique differences, really, Alan, because if you look at even these 3 here, if you look at Dean McNeely up front there, a very short stride, very choppy stride, and that sort of technique really doesn't suffer very much when it's in these sort of conditions because there's no drive there at the back of the legs. He's not pushing off to get the speed. Whereas the other 2 really predominantly track runners, you can see their stride length is a lot longer and they're pushing off with both the legs to sort of get the drive that they need to push themselves forward. Eamon, you can see there, is really digging in at the moment. And that's really all we're talking about. We're talking about marginal inches in each stride being the main factors here at the moment. And some runners, because of that particular factor, find themselves running a lot better on the conditions like this because they don't drive into the mud as deep as other runners, and therefore they succeed. Having said that, Dean McNeely does look very casual. He doesn't look as if he's struggling. He's almost as if he got fed up leading the race there for so long and decided that he'd just latch on to the leading group. But we'll have to wait and see whether he's still got a bit of puff left to keep up with the boys when they push past him here.
Certainly these 3 got a very, very big lead now, about 100 metres over the next man. Andy Bristow, in fact, back in 4th place. And still interesting to see that Steve Binns biding his time, now back in 5th and 6th place, gradually working his way through the field. We heard, incidentally, that David Lewis has had a bad cold all week, and that may be a contributory factor to him having to drop out today.
Now then, Les Jones, chairman of the Northern Ireland 3As, you must be delighted by the way Dean McNeely's going here.
Yeah, we're absolutely delighted. He was trying to get on the team, but he's making a major contribution to the lead in the race.
Do you feel he's got the ability to hang in there now he's been overtaken?
I think he's going through a particularly rough patch at the present time, and what he needs to do is hang on to Roger and Eamon, and they pull him through the rough patch, and, well, then he's on the team, isn't he? Mm-hmm.
Now, Les, there's been a lot of criticism about this whole event, and now there's more criticism today, saying, how can we pick a team for the warmth and the firm going in New Zealand here in the mud in Gateshead?
That was always going to be a problem. Once the race went to the Southern Hemisphere, we were always going to have a problem. And what we tried to do is have the race early to allow the athletes time to prepare for New Zealand. The conditions, well, they're not as bad as people are saying. Of course they're muddy, but they're not absolutely, you know, ankle-deep mud. I mean, I know it's particularly bad from that point of view, But this is cross-country. I mean, it's cross-country running.
Okay, Les, thanks very much indeed.
So the long and tiring journey is almost at an end. We've reached the final lap of the course. Eamon Martin is the leader. Ian McNeely in second place. And then you'll see it's a very, very long way back to the next man. Those two really had things all their own way for a long time now, since dropping off the third place man, Roger Hackney. Eamon Martin, the former national cross-country champion, and the RAF man, the Irishman Ian McNeely, and the green vest there, have been running side by side for a long time now, and they know that they are safely on that plane to New Zealand in March. The first 7 men, remember, to qualify, plus 2 to be added by the selectors. And it's a matter of pride now, I think, between these two. But moving further back down the field, we'll see the men in the following positions. Bristow is 4th. Roberson, the Scot, now has moved through into 5th place. Indeed, he may have overtaken Bristow. We've just lost sight of him. I'm pretty sure Bristow is still 4th. Roberson 5th. Galloway in 6th place, and Binns is 7th. And so, Steve, it must be a great feeling for these two. They know that everything's safe now. It's just a matter of which wants to actually cross the line first the most.
Well, that's the hard part, I'm afraid. And they're crossing each other here like there's no tomorrow. One's taking the lead and the other one's following. Dion's actually tapping him on the shoulder and says, it's my turn to lead now, I think, because they've been shifting positions almost every 100 metres. And I think they're so tired, these boys, that none of them really got a sprint. All they've got is a sort of a marginal change of pace, which just drifts each other past one another every now and again. But you see Eamon there, he's really working hard into this mud and up into this hill. And there's third position there, Andy Bristow, I think we just flashed back to. You can just see him there at the top of the screen. The 2 leaders are still fighting out on the, although I think the only part of the course which really allows people to run, which is a stretch which has just been sanded, and it's basically a road which has just put sand over the top. But you can see it's neck and neck between these two. You can't ask for more exciting races, I think, Anna, with these two. And there's, yes, I think that's Roger Hackney, I think, sorry, he's in 3rd, Andy Bristow is in 4th. But they're quite a way away, really, and I think at the moment the gaps are going to stay there, but the main 2 are really fighting it out at the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it, in an age when more and more of our best athletes are virtually full-time runners. We've got 2 guys in the first 3 who hold down 2 busy full-time jobs. Eamon Martin here is a test engineer with the Ford Motor Company in Essex, and Roger Hackney is a surgeon with the RAF. Indeed, has just qualified one of his big exams to become virtually the highest status of surgeon in the land. And you can imagine the hard work he's had to put in. And also Ian McNeely, indeed, in 2nd place, is also a member of the RAF. They're tough guys, these cross-country experts. And Roger Hackney looks pretty safe in 3rd place. And with 7 to qualify, the places are almost already decided. That's Bristow back in 4th place, Andy Bristow, who was 7th in the big race in Mullis, in which many of these athletes took part about a month ago. And he looks as though he, too, is going to make the team for Auckland. Incidentally, the World Cross-Country Championships will be held there on March the 26th, and you can see them on ITV. Martin leads, McNeely 2nd, Hackney 3rd, Bristow 4th.
About 400 to go now, Alan, and I think it's all guns blazing for Eamon Martin. He's decided that this is going to be the break point for his burst to the finish, and I think it's actually working. He's gained 5 yards on McNeely, but look, I think we can both see they're really desperate men in this type of mud. But Eamon's pushed it hard, and so has McNeely, and they've both run great races, these boys. But I think we're going to see Eamon Martin now coming home the winner out of these two. A great race for Eamon.
A terrific comeback for a man who's missed 2 years with a serious Achilles tendon injury. He's got the appetite to come back, and he's come back in considerable style. And Eamon Martin wins the World Cross-Country Championship trials. Ian McNeely is in 2nd place. The first 7 will qualify. It's a big gap back to Roger Hackney in 3rd. And one delighted man will be McVities there, one of our great cross-country runners of the mid-60s who coaches Eamon Martin. Roger Hackney, a smile on his face. He knows he's safe in 3rd place. And then we look back for the next 4. Roger Hackney obviously felt the pain, particularly over the final part of that race, once he'd lost touch with the 2 leaders, Martin and McNeely. Bristow can afford a little punch in the air of delight, because it's a very big success for him. Roger Hackney 3rd then. Ooh, he's got a real stitch as well. He only just made it over the line. Andy Bristow in 4th place. That's Bristow. And the next group just round in the corner, it's Chris Roberson, the Scotsman, really fighting it out with Dalloway. But they're okay. They're both there anyway. And Steve Binns will be the 7th man home. And those 7 are automatically selected for the British team for those World Cross-Country Championships. Quite an honour for them. 2 further names will be added. That's Dave Buzzer coming in next. Number 26 there in the yellow vest. And Roden, number 63, the next. And there's Carl Harrison, also in the first 10. Terrific run then by Eamon Martin, the winner of the World Cross-Country Trial.
So the result of the men's trial, Eamon Martin, the national champion of 1984, back in winning form. Dion McNeely of Willowfield Temperance Harriers in 2nd, then Roger Packney, Andy Bristow, Chris Robertson, Mark Dalloway, and Steve Binns in the crucial top 7, Buzzer and Roden 8th and 9th.
A chunk of athletics in the Raw. We've got more